Hello, everyone, and welcome to this special edition podcast of the IG Lighthouse podcast with me, Scott Sammons. For those of you listening in, I'm joined by Carys and Joseph Hettrick, who are two previous New Professional Award winners for the Information and Records Management Society. For those of you watching, you'll know that they're here. Ha ha! So, the whole point of this podcast is to, for those of you that don't know, I am a previous New Professional Award winner myself in 2012, and I have taken over the patronage, that's the word, of it from Alison North. So we wanted to do a little podcast of some of the most recent winners, as to find out a little bit more about them, find out a little bit more about what their thoughts were, how they get into it, all those sorts of things. So my thanks to you both for agreeing to join us on this call. Thank you very much. Your time is greatly appreciated. We're just going to do a little bit of background, a little bit of this is what the award's about, and then we'll launch into some finding out a little bit more about you and your applications and what you thought and where you are going now and what your future might hold. So, for those listening in, for those that don't know, the Alison North New Professionals Award was established around 2010 time, and there's been 15, 16 different award winners. Some years it's one winner, some years it's a winner and a runner-up. One year I think there was even joint winners, so it's been a range, and it's aimed for people within the first 3 years of their work or their profession or are in full-time study. So if you're an apprentice, if you're a full-time study, if you are just new to your role and not necessarily doing any formal study, then it's for you. Previous years have had to put in written applications and write something that appeals to the awards panel, which was Alison and ex-chairs of the IRMS, and now it's myself and David Reeve as the current vice chair of the IRMS. And in the past, it's been, I think we were all three of us where we had to write an application. And when you're trying to balance that with other priorities, it's certainly interesting. I got away with it when I did mine in 2012 because mine was a little bit of a mini, let's take the mick out of the British reaction to the GDPR. So mine was a humorous, what did I call mine? You say tomato, I say Aufzwier, which is the German, I think that's right, if I remember rightly, which is the German word for tomato. So it was either way it's tomato, either way it's data protection, but why are we arguing over the minutiae here? So it was a very subtle, let's just take a little poke fun at our Britishness. So I was able to get away with a bit of humour. But in recent years, you've got to plan ahead. And that's kind of why this year and last year, we've kind of changed the criteria now. So yes, we want to hear from you. We want to know your insights. You're the future of the profession, so we want to know what you think and your thoughts. But we've opened it up so you can do it as a written application. You can send in a blog, a vlog, whatever it might be, whatever format you want to do it in, providing it covers around 1,000 words, maybe not as much, but that sort of, we want your views on all things information, records management, information governance, data protection, the lot. What's your views on all of it? So if you're interested, head to the IRMS website, irms.org.uk/new professionals. You can also visit to find details on the Lighthouse IG website, and we'll also put some stuff as part of this episode as well. So let's talk to our esteemed honoured guests that are part of the New Professional alumni. So, Joseph, welcome, first of all. It was I've been talking to you since 2024 when you won. Tell us a little bit more about your entry and what made you apply.
Yes, thanks, Scott. So I applied in 2024, and around this time there's seemingly quite a spate of books on George Orwell, and in reading them, I revisited 1984, and it was the first time rereading it since becoming a records manager, and was struck by the fact that Winston's job is in the records department of the Ministry of Truth. And so essentially my piece was on the significance of records within the context of 1984. So they're both a instrument of the state of Big Brother, of INGSOC, but also through Winston's diarising appear somewhat ambiguously as well to be a solution to some of those problems. So essentially reflecting on that ambiguous state of records within Orwell's work, and then I think to try and link it some way into the contemporary frame that I believe the award was set up with, suggesting that obviously as we have greater tools and capacities to create information and records and to manage them, that this has some bearing as well on the future of the profession.
Mm. And I think because everyone focuses on, when you think of like George Orwell, 1984, you think of all the privacy and modern world stuff, but to actually look at it from an information and records management point of view, very interesting and very a new take on it. I like that. What made you apply? Why did you go for it?
So I think partly because I had something to say. So I had thought of this, so I knew that I wasn't forcing myself to write something. And then I think the attraction of the funded place at conference was obviously a really valuable draw. And it wasn't. So I did this broadly at the same time, I believe, as I was writing my dissertation for the archive and records management qualification. So in the context of that much longer piece, 1,000 words didn't seem prohibitive, especially given that once you put in a few long quotes, that did most of the heavy lifting for me as well.
Yeah, a few long quotes. I think my secret is throwing in a few jokes here and there. That definitely eats up time, eats up lettering. Yeah, I like that. Thank you, Joseph. Carys, obviously you won this year. You're 20. Yeah, we're still in 2025. Yeah, you won this year. So tell us what your entry was about.
So it's actually quite similar to Joseph in terms of it kind of draws from my dissertation. I did the Masters in Archives and Records Management. So my entry was discussing the kind of gap between the Information and Records Management Society and kind of members within the workspace and their kind of organisations through the method of communication. So my main issue, and it kind of came from my kind of emergence into the profession, was I was finding that there's so many kind of issues in communication, and not from want of trying, but more the understanding of terminology and how these words, are perceived. Obviously, when you do the kind of professional qualification, either that be the apprenticeship or you just kind of come into the career, we view these terms in a very specific way, which is not always received the same way. So things is like, what is a record? That, and especially in the digital space, that kind of term has been broken apart. It has been debated in so many like archival science and kind of records management kind of academic writing, but at the same time it's that kind of practical application of it, because unless you have that standard, unless you have that glossary, regardless of what people say, you can't come to any kind of common grounding. So a main sticking point for me was archiving. You'll probably all agree, like archiving means one thing to me and a lot of other things to say, like IT, and it was actually more just frustration and similar to Joseph. I just had something to say. I was like, this is really annoying me. But why is it annoying me, and why is it a problem? It's not just the fact that it's frustrating to have to constantly say, what kind of archiving are you trying to tell me about? Are you telling me about, long-term preservation, historical archiving? Are you just talking about IT and archiving? So I, delved into that, did a kind of research dissertation, investigation, and kind of surveys on kind of people's perceptions of terminology, and drew a correlation between a lack of adoption of records management practices with the lack of understanding of records management terminology. So that's essentially where it came from, and I made recommendations in terms of adapting the terminology. It is obviously, you want to stick to your guns, you want to stick to your profession, but for me, I'm having to kind of move to historical archiving. As much as that pains me, it benefits me in my workplace. So, recommending an institution-specific glossary, making sure that is always something that you champion. Like, communication is the most valuable tool when you're trying to get anything done as, kind of information records managers. What with data protection, data security, people need to be able to understand what you're saying, because we rely on users to kind of do what we're championing. So yeah, that's a kind of roundabout way of explaining my article. If you want to read it, it is in the latest version of the IRMS bulletin, and Joseph, yours will be in a previous version as well. But yeah, that's what mine was about.
I think that's why. So for yours, Joseph, I think I was just doing admin for the awards panel at that time, so I got to see it before everyone else did. But it was I think that was Alison and that would have been David at that point. So they would have been on the awards panel at that point. So obviously I don't know their logic when they were deciding things, but I quite liked it as this appeals to a different view of something that we all know to be one thing when actually it's something else. And then yours, Carys, is because obviously this year I did take over from Alison. It was that's what kind of appealed to me is it as we talk about to our apprentices, and we talk to them as a profession about meeting people in their language, on their terms, bringing it to them, because not everyone is quite as geeky and passionate about information and records management as we are, funnily enough. So actually, perhaps letting go of some of the things that bring us comfort and go, yes, that's useful to us. But are you going to win anyone over by pitching technical language to them? No, you kind of have to meet them on their terms, their language, concepts they understand, so they can get excited by it, rather than just see it, to your point, as something a little stuffy and a you problem, not a me problem.
Yeah, absolutely.
I like that. So since winning this year, Carys, what have you been up to? What have you been doing? Has it launched you to the stars?
I wouldn't say quite the stars yet, but I'm definitely aiming for it. So, I mean, I did apply for the reasons similar to Joseph in terms of getting to go to the IRMS conference, and since being able to be there and network and meet new people, I realised just how important that skill, but also that access to the community has been. So since then, I have volunteered myself to work with the IRMS. So I'm one of the new marketing and communications officers, which I think has been a really good step for me, because not only has it kind of helped me like get involved with the IRMS, the role itself is involved with so much that isn't just specific to the IRMS. So it's that kind of marketing, communications, building on those skills, which has been really, really valuable. I've been able to kind of do the things I might not have been able to do in my current role in my job, because obviously when you've got a job to do, that's your aim. You've got to make sure you do those things. But I think with the IRMS volunteering, I've actually been able to kind of build on my passion and help kind of like steer the strategic vision, as much as I'm not only an officer, but I've actually felt like I've had a lot more influence than I originally thought I would. So it's really been building my confidence. I've not been very good at shouting about the fact that I won the award, but since winning the award, I've met some wonderful people who have encouraged me to, put it on my LinkedIn and really kind of like promote that award. And I think it definitely is something that will stay with me forever. Like in the sense with you, Scott, you having been a previous winner and the success that you've had, and also the mentorship that you get through the program, I think has been really, really valuable. It's really nice to have someone to like speak to, but also who, like, I would say, like, you as a person is very similar to myself, which has really been beneficial. The kind of, you echo a lot of what the new professions are because you were a new professional award winner yourself. So I think all in all, it's definitely still a lot of confidence for myself, and has encouraged me to reach for the stars, I would definitely say.
Good. And we are a unique bunch. We really are. So what have you been up to, Joseph? What have you done since your award win last year?
Well, I would echo much of what Carys said. So I think that the real value that I've taken from it is precisely those same networking opportunities at the conference, the ability to learn from a really supportive and informed and interesting group of people, and again that mentoring relationship as well has been very helpful, particularly because often in a work organisational setting, potentially it can be fairly siloed, as it were, working in an information professional. And so having the capacity to sense check or get a perspective on different approaches and ways of working from an external source has been really very, very helpful indeed.
Good, good. And obviously you don't have to volunteer for the society off the back of it. I think it's been about a 50, probably do the maths on this. I think it's a 50-50 split. Some have gone on to volunteer in some capacity, some haven't. So it's certainly not an expectation. But to your point, Carys, I would encourage.
No, but I think it has helped. So I have done some work. So I was on the ARA, Archive and Record Association section for new professionals committee at the time when I applied, and I've gone on that I have recently joined as an editor of Archives and Records, the journal there. And so, although obviously not directly with the IRMS, I think
volunteering still counts. Still counts.
That goes along with the award. Has been helpful in that regard.
Absolutely,
Awesome.
And the IRMS and ARA now have a mutual partnership agreement, so that kind of brings us together a little bit more, which is really beneficial.
Yeah, definitely. So, thinking about when you were writing your application, when you were considering going for it, and the editorial process that these things go through, if there was a top tip or some tips that you would give anyone considering going for the award, Joe, what would that be? What would your top tip be?
So I think it's interesting that you framed it as the editorial process, because I think, well, probably with most writing, but in particular with something of this length, the actual writing is probably not the hardest bit or the key component. It is the editing and the trimming and the economizing on the words. So I would definitely suggest giving oneself sufficient time and thought space to do that part of it, and additionally or similarly maybe not being too ambitious in the scope of what you're trying to convey in such a limited word count. So being quite focused with what it is that you are talking about would be make it a more coherent and worthwhile piece, maybe.
Yeah, I like that. I'd agree with that. When I was writing mine and going on a little bit of a tongue-in-cheek rant about how we were approaching GDPR, the temptation to include all of it was very tempting, but no. Stick to the point. What is this actually about? Yeah, I agree with that. Good one. Thank you, Joseph. Carys, what would be your top tip?
Yeah, I would definitely echo that. I think there's so many things that you could talk about, and one thing leads to the other, and it gets into this wider picture and wider context, but keeping that kind of straight and narrow kind of one point is really beneficial, and that's kind of what I try to do myself. Definitely first few editions I was talking about some crazy other linkage to terminology and how that affects records management. I thought, whilst that is also beneficial, I don't think it's going to help me in this application. Obviously, we've got the difference with the applications this year, so it isn't just writing, which I think is really beneficial, because for me personally, I find it a lot easier to discuss my kind of thoughts and feelings in writing. Although I can do it, it takes that little bit longer. So personally, I think do something that like you are passionate about. I'm disgustingly passionate about communication, terminology, and what that means for me. It's something that I think is a real kind of like sticking point for the profession. You can obviously talk about what you think is good about the profession, and I think it's maybe a good way to go about it, because it tends to be we want to talk about what's wrong and how you can fix it, but also you can also champion like what is good about the profession or where you see it going. I think it just ultimately needs to be something you're passionate about, because that's where your voice and what you think for the future will come through, because there is so much already written, and that is the benefit of it being personalized, is it will always be like unique to yourself. I would also just say, if you can find some practical impact with that, so anything you're passionate about, how can you put that into practice? How does that affect current practices? How does that, benefit or hinder people? Offer something that is new if you can, and if it's not new, like with Joseph, kind of going back in time and kind of comparing that to like the kind of current day. How can you take an old idea and make it new? Something just, again, I'm just going to sound like a broken record, but be yourself, use your passion. It could literally be anything. It could be like why you think Microsoft 365 shouldn't be a monopoly, or it should be a monopoly within the organizational context. It can be genuinely anything, and I think that's, as you, Scott, would like there to be a wide variety of applications. You don't want everyone saying the same thing, because ultimately that's not unique, and that's not what the New Professional Award is about. It's about those people who will come in and create spaces for change to be had, and ultimately that's where the personal aspect comes from for me. Sorry, I'm rambling now, but I am obviously very passionate about it, so it makes it easier to talk about it, hence why I think you should be passionate for the application. And speak to your friends, like they might have found out something that you're passionate about, or speak to your boss or something, because my boss actually encouraged me to apply for this. I wasn't 100% sure. Putting yourself forward for an application for an award sometimes feels a bit wrong, and it's not wrong. It's not wrong to put yourself forward, even if you've just got something to say. I would be, in my role within IRMS, I'd really like to shout about more of the applications, not just the winner. I'd love to see that breadth of the new professionals like we have within the industry. Like, I think what new people have to say, fresh eyes are the best kind of eyes to have. So even if you think it might not make sense or be, don't even think it's stupid, because it's not, because your opinion and your experience is so vital to the profession.
Yeah, I'd very much echo that. I think that's why we wanted to open it up as well, to get a breadth of different things in.
Absolutely.
Especially now that the IRMS has got different media as well. So yeah, we can do things in the bulletin, but we can do other things as well. Yeah, I thoroughly agree with that. Thank you both. Thank you both for your time. That's greatly appreciated. quick little wrap up and summary then. If you are considering going for the award, check out the IRMS's website, irms.org.uk/new professionals. The closing date for this year for applications is the 31st of January 2025. And as we've said here, you can find things on the IRMS website around what you can win. So opportunity to go to the conference, mentorship, your article or your submission will get published to the wider membership and to the public. So again, challenge that internal critical voice. Don't listen to the internal imposter. Actually, you can do it. You'll also find details online of the sorts of things that we're looking for, criteria. So you have to be within 3 years of starting in the profession or full-time education or on an apprenticeship. And again, we're looking for that new ideas or just your ideas. So to Carys's point, to Joseph's point, even if you're taking something that's older and doing something new with it, great. Or if it's just something completely new, if it's something completely radical, like maybe we're all fuddy-duddies and we should be doing records management in a completely different way. Be as radical or as non-radical as you like. Key thing is get your point across, and definitely get your point across before the 31st of January 2025.
2026, please.
Oh, 2026, yeah.
That would be really helpful.
Can't believe it's December 2025. Where has that week, year, month, whatever, gone? Madness. Well, thank you again both for your time. It's greatly appreciated. It's good to see you both again. We'll definitely be doing more with apprentices, I think, and with the winners, I think, because I think we need to form an alumni of Alison North New Professional Award winners. So definitely. For those that are interested, please visit the IRMS website or please visit the Lighthouse IG website and we'll give you details. We'll also give you details on the episode link if you want to find out more. Otherwise, that's everything for this special edition of this podcast. My thanks again goes to Joseph and Carys for your time. Greatly appreciated. Have a wonderful Christmas and New Year, and I hope to see you all in the new year with a new series. Thank you again.
Thank you.